Hello, this is Maddock, and for this month's Devs Diary, I thought I'd also make a quick video to show the improvements we just made to our terrain system and also our terrain tools. I am going to just try to do this all in one take with no editing, so please forgive any blunders. But yeah, so when I say terrain, what I really mean is ground surfaces in general. We use this pretty much everywhere, even for just like simple tile floors. And yeah, the ground is pretty important. It's most of what you see most of the time in our game. And also in the next major update, we're adding a new area that's very heavily terrain focused. And also Exanima, as large as it has become, is nearing its conclusion, which means that as we look beyond it, we're, outdoor environments and terrain are becoming a much bigger focus in general. So this here is just one of our arenas. We've been using it for testing this stuff. It's a lot of it is empty, but that's fine because we're focusing on terrain right now, right? And yeah, the first thing we improved is the material system for the ground in general. This used to be really limited, which meant there was a lot of things that we just couldn't really do properly. Some things just didn't look very good. This also meant that artists had to do a lot of sort of ugly, complicated, and inefficient workarounds. But yeah, now everything looks much better. It's much easier to work with, and it means that performance is better too because we don't have to do these workarounds. Obviously, this means we had to redo all our terrain assets on this new system. And the quality has gone way up, which also allows us to be a bit more daring with just color and contrast. And yeah, it's just, I guess it means we can spend more time being productive and less time being unsatisfied. 3D grass is also hugely improved. It looks much better than it used to. Um, 3D displacement is also improved. This actually turned out quite a lot better than we expected. So now we're thinking we're going to lean into that a bit more and just double its resolution. Now, tool-wise, the most important addition by far is this editor here. So this is where we sort of create and tweak all these materials. It's also how we make brushes, which are these sort of rules for painting materials. And yeah, so you have your basic sort of standard material stuff here. You also have a lot of parameters for how these materials blend into each other, and also with brushes. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff here that I won't get into right now. But it affects the terrain. The materials affect the terrain in various ways. There's 3D displacement, for example. It's also 3D details that can be linked to materials. Like that's how 3D grass works. But it could be anything, right? It could be 3D stones. It could be larger plants. It could be twigs, trees, even, or mushrooms, whatever, really. This used to all be like hard coded, so really hard to work with. But now it's all user friendly and interactive, and we have way more control over just how everything looks and works. So then you have the brushes. So the brushes are these sort of hierarchical systems of rules for how to paint terrain. And yeah, so if I take this gets really complicated. So I don't know how much I can show you, but just to show you basically how it works. So here I have one of these brushes is something that mixes different types of grass. So here you have dry grass, for example. I could just change this for earth, and you will see here it changed now. The grass is mixed with earth instead of drier grass. And I can also change so less earth, and now it's thicker grass, or more earth and yeah, less grass, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's a lot you can do with this. And again, the rules themselves are fairly simple, because the functions are stuff like elevation and slope and distance from water. There's various like handmade or procedural masks. There's different functions like that. And individually, they're quite simple, but because they're hierarchical and they keep sort of refining each other, you actually start to get a lot of variety and like subtle nuance in how these things work. And like, yeah, so here again, bit less dry grass. Yeah, it's a really versatile system. Um, and yeah, it gets complicated, but it's you saw the basics. Now, all of this is a palette. There's other things as well, but I won't get into those. But yeah, this is a palette. So once you're done, you can save it, and you could just load a different palette. So here, for example, I loaded this other palette, and as you can see, it's changed the entire terrain. So the idea behind this might look like it's geared towards procedural generation. And I mean, that is one possible sort of application of it, but really for us, it's more about having a really nice, efficient workflow for editing that's, removes a lot of the sort of tedium and stuff. But these palettes are designed to be compatible and interchangeable. And that's also so that if you say travel between regions and you have a different sort of type of environment, these palettes can blend with each other. And also that goes for seasons. So you can make a palette that's like tuned for a specific season, and then have that sort of blend with other seasons gradually over time, sort of thing. But really, this is all designed so you can edit everything down to the last detail by hand. So, and you do that with this. So we just talked about brushes and materials, and yeah, here you have any material or any brush, the procedural brushes, you can paint them in by hand. So for example, if I wanted to add some rock here, I can do that. I could just add in some rocks. Not doing a great job of it, but you get the idea. And yeah, you can also, so for example, this is a dirt path, and it was painted in by hand, obviously. So I could replace that with a pavement. I can also actually specifically replace it so that the material it originally was is just replaced with the path material only where that material is painted. So if I paint that here, it's not going to do anything. So this is useful for a number of reasons. Like say you've painstakingly painted a floor somewhere, and then later you decide you want to change it for a different floor, you can do that without like undoing all the work you did and just specifically replace that one material. And these materials also like blend. So I can blend it with grass. You can see in the cracks now there's grass, or I can blend it with the earth, and yeah, it'll adapt to that. Going back to where we were maybe. But yeah, this is your basic sort of material painting brush. Then you have the sort of 3D sculpting brushes. So you have like your basic sort of raise and lower, which is just, you can just, yeah, raise and lower terrain. And then you have your level brush, which is you can just pick a level and paint everything to that level. So you can just create nice flat surfaces where you need them. So yeah, that kind of thing. And yeah, and then you have these sort of more modifier based brushes. These are a bit more advanced. Well, this one's fairly basic. It's kind of like just an averaging brush. So you can use it to sort of smooth things out, or just, level things. So if you want to create sort of steps or whatever in something, you can do that with this. And then you have the new ones we just added. These are a bit more advanced, and they're also really cool. These are super useful. Let me just show you a bit, mess this up a bit so I can show you what they do. So the flatten brush, so all of the brushes so far sort of work in 3D, right? Or in 2D rather, sorry. So you're painting elevation as if it was an image, whereas this one actually works in 3D. So this one, if I decide to flatten this slope here, it will preserve its orientation. And you can generally sort of get these kind of shapes that are a good example of this would be if you had a path going down a mountain and you wanted to flatten out the path, but you still want to preserve the slope and how it winds around the mountain and stuff. This would do that. And you can also create some quite sort of geometric shapes with this. Especially, probably I need to turn the opacity up. So, or you can do the opposite and sort of smooth things out, make this hill more gradual. Yeah, it's quite a versatile brush. It has some very specific uses which are very good and can't really be replaced by another brush. And then you have the other new brush, which is Smudge, and Smudge is really cool. So Smudge allows you to do a lot of sort of more organic stuff that is really difficult to do otherwise. So I can basically just kind of pull terrain around with it and make these kind of shapes with it. But you can also, it's almost like one brush does it all, because you can just keep sort of refining things with this brush. I can make this steeper if I want, or I can make it more gradual. I can pull it out. It's really good for just sort of retouching small things. So I can just, you know, make this rock a bit bigger or something like that. It's just a really versatile brush that can do a lot of things, and a lot of things that are just difficult to do with the other sort of more ham-fisted brushes. And then you have another new feature, which is our hole brush. So this is useful in a lot of cases. So if you wanted to integrate certain elements into a level and you just need more control over the terrain geometry, this is how you do that. So before, what we would have to do is remove a whole, say I wanted to put a cave in this mountainside, whatever, this cliff. Now, before we would have had to remove a whole chunk of terrain and then try to sort of rebuild around it. Whereas now I can just paint a specific hole where I want it. And you can give these very specific shapes. And this is very useful for a whole number of things. Like say you wanted to do a well, or just generally end something somewhere because there's a wall or something. You can just, yeah, you have a lot more control. This is a whole lot easier than what we had to do previously. So yeah, there is potentially quite a lot more sort of technical stuff, but I'm not going to get into that now. We did also make actually lots of improvements to our outdoor lighting and weather effects, but yeah, I'm just going to end this here. So yeah, some really good visual upgrades to terrain and some really solid tools for us to get through content creation a lot faster and a lot better. You should see this all in game fairly soon, and I think you'll definitely notice the improvements. And so yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you found it interesting, and check out our regular dev diaries for more info on what we've been working on. Cheers.